Can you reset the timer, please?
All right, dude. On it.
And we're live.
Why you good?
Yep. Perfect. All right, everyone. So welcome back to another session of Father to Child. Just a reminder right now with the whole coronavirus issue, stay-home order, we will still be doing our live feeds on Instagram and also posting them on Facebook instead of having our actual face-to-face classes. Once things change, we will obviously go back to our normal scheduled programming, and we'll let everyone know through the social media outlets to just get the word out there. A reminder that at the very end of this, we will post 2 questions, and in order for you to get full credit for attending this session, you will have to reply to us via Instagram or Facebook through a message and just fully answer those questions. So today I'm joined with by Henry Brown. How you doing, Henry?
I'm doing well, thank you. How are you?
I'm doing good.
Excellent, excellent. So today's lesson is on communication.
Perfect.
Just to recap a little bit, on last week we did go over competition and fathering, which is a very important topic, and it goes hand in hand with communication. What I took from last week's session the most was the fact that competition is not necessarily a negative thing. You know, in the real world, we compete for jobs. On sports teams, we compete for positions, et cetera, et cetera. So, yeah, that was probably the biggest thing I took from it. But we want to avoid vicariously living through our children.
That's right. So we are going to be forced to compete in mostly every realm, right? So the thing is that competition itself is not bad. What's bad is making children believe that your love for them is attached to whether they win or lose, so the outcome of things, right? So good point on that. So today we're doing session 9, improving my communication skills, and I feel like that's something that we can all always work on, right? Improving our communication skills.
Absolutely, absolutely. I think when it comes to communication, probably for me, one of my strengths is just verbally talking to people, you know, verbally, even writing is pretty solid. However, probably like a lot of, especially men, listening, that seems to be an issue.
All right. So I mean, let's get into it. So today's warm-up skills, warm-up questions are going to be number 1, my strength in communication is, and number 2, my weakness in communication is. So this obviously would be a time that if we were in class, we would give the men time to actually think about what are their strengths, what are the weaknesses, write down stuff, and kind of feel comfortable sharing, which you kind of already did, right? You were talking about one of your strengths, and also you touched on your weakness. I think for me, I would try to say that my strength would be that I'm not saying that I'm like a really good listener, but I would say that my listening skills are better than my talking skills.
Okay.
So probably that's why I focus more on that, because that was already kind of like my strength naturally. So I just focus more on that. And then and I guess like then my the talking portion is kind of built on what the other person kind of says wherever they're taking the conversation. But I guess I would say my weakness in communication would be that I feel a lot of times while I'm listening, I'm already kind of like, at the same time, I'm somewhat making like assumptions of where the conversation is going to be going. So that takes away from me actually fully committing to the listening part. So it's like I'm listening, but just enough to where I'm kind of trying to make predictions, and sometimes I kind of get ahead of myself and assume that the conversation is going somewhere when it's really not. So.
Gotcha. I can understand that. Yeah, definitely. So when it comes to communication, it's something that is definitely valuable. Would you say it's something that we need to effectively implement with our family setting? Speaking with the wife or significant other, and especially the children, being able to communicate with them. Whether it's verbally, or legibly, like we have to be able to communicate with them effectively to have efficient relationship.
Oh, for sure, yeah, and I think like you said, it is important if you're gonna want to have uh, not only an efficient relationship but also a beneficial relationship, right? So if you want to, I mean, if you're gonna want to have a beneficial relationship, whether it be your spouse, your girlfriend, your wife, coworkers, your children, the communication piece is gonna be vital because that's gonna obviously be the foundation for that relationship. Um, so yeah, and then like another thing too is a lot of times when we talk about, so let me ask you this, when we're talking about communication, what is the first thing that comes to mind when we're talking about communication?
For me, it's just what I hear.
Okay, so what you hear, right? So that would be one of the most common responses. People would say, well, it would be like what I'm saying or what I'm hearing, but a lot of times people do forget that communication, a lot of it is nonverbal, right? So it's like not only are you listening, talking, but you're also observing the other person. And in today's world, a lot of the communication is done, with technology. Obviously now we've gotten as close as possible as ever before to trying to mimic face to face actual interacting. But before we were limited to just like the audio, right? So before you were just going off of like a phone call with someone or even text message, which would be written, and a lot of the other stuff was left out. So you didn't have, for instance, a text message, you don't have a tone of voice, right? You can't see the, the physical demeanors of people. So a lot of times that takes away from the message and it opens it up for a lot of miscommunication, right? You're losing things in that.
Yes, indeed, indeed. Yeah, that's a very very good point. It's funny, the body language. I think that's like 90% of
Yup.
communication. So it's like if you sit here and you have your arms crossed, what is that? What do you see when I'm like this? I'm not being open, am
Yeah.
I? To whatever it is I'm saying or whatever if I'm trying to receive something versus actually physically being open. It shows signs that, yeah, you know what, I'm kind of interested and I'm engaged in whatever it is that you're saying.
Yeah. I was just listening to this audiobook and they were talking about communication. And one of the things they were saying is that again, body language being a big part of it is that, a lot of people, they can see if there's interest in what's happening in that conversation. If people are like, let's say they're in a loud setting, if people are choosing to lean in more to be able to listen better, then that obviously means that person cares enough about what's going on, or they're interested in the conversation, that they're doing that to kind of help improve and catch more words and stuff like that. So, a lot of times I wanna like, I'm looking back and I'm thinking, okay, relationships. A lot of the issues that arise in relationships and the breakdown in communication, it's like misunderstandings that are happening like through the phone, right? Whether it be like a text message because a lot of body language and tone is missing, or if it's like a phone conversation, because a lot of times nowadays a lot of people like to multitask or are forced to do that. So even if you're having like a phone call on your cell phone, most of the time you're moving around, you're doing something else. What I'm saying, you're doing other things that also require attention, so you're not fully committed to that conversation. And again, because you're not fully aware of things that you're either saying or being said, opens up possibility for miscommunication, right?
Yes.
So, it's really important that people know that, so that a lot of times whenever they're in that situation, they can say, hey, maybe this is like a miscommunication. Whether you're the listener or the speaker, you can just be like, hey, hold up, I think what's going on is we're having miscommunication. Like, let's figure out how to figure this out.
Okay.
Right.
So how can we apply that to the family setting? Like how can that help a father?
So, you know, fully committing to a conversation and like talking to your kids, you know, we always talk about how research has shown that whenever families have eat meals together, have like a family dinner, um, that that brings down the rate of like getting in trouble in school. For girls, it brings down the rate of teenage pregnancies. For like, again, like I said, for boys, it's acting out in school. And so I think that's a time where people actually have to stop moving, sit down, and kind of really like be engaged in what's going on more than just like talking to them, you know, on the phone briefly or sending text messages and stuff. So it allows for more robust conversation. You know what I'm saying? There's a lot more stuff that can be said during dinner. So that's like, I always say that's one of a great opportunity to help improve communications with your kids is like dinner time, man. Just, or even going out for lunch together.
So you're saying if I have dinner with my kids, or if I'm sitting on the other side, if I have dinner with my parents, that it's gonna help me improve my behaviors or decrease maybe bad behaviors. It's gonna be beneficial towards the parent to child relationship and whatnot.
Yeah, because then it's like you have an opportunity to open up a dialogue to see what's going on with the kids in their lives. You know, who are they hanging out with? How was their week? How's school going? Because a lot of times the whole school conversation is like, it's like more of a pass by conversation where, you know, it's either you have those 5 or 10 minutes car ride to school that you're just like talking to them about whatever, and it's like, how you doing in school? Oh, I'm all right. You know, like, you're good on your grades? Yeah. Okay, cool. All right. Well, you know, have a good day. Bye. And there really isn't any, because remember, if it's in the car at the same time, the dad has to focus on the road. He has to be aware of what's going on around him. The son most likely is going to be on his cell phone. And it's during that environment that a conversation is taking place. Yeah, there's like a lot of stuff that can take away from the actual focus on the conversation.
Indeed, and when talking about communication and how to improve it, say for instance in that example that you gave, you said the father asked the kid, "How are your grades?" The kid responds, "Good." What kind of question is that?
Well, you wanna be able to ask like an open-end question, right? Where you take away from like the yes nos. So it's like, are you doing good in school? You've already set up a question where the answer could be yes or no, right?
Yes.
Instead of saying that, you can say, are you is there any subjects in school that you're having like a hard time in, right? And then that would be like, well, whatever, you know, or like, oh, what's your easiest subject that you like, or what do you like, what do you not like in school?
So open-ended questions, reformat what kind of questions we're posing to get a more fuller, more detailed answer instead of yes, no, good, bad, etc., etc.
Yeah, so that's the thing. So like when we're talking about communication, we also have to talk about, all right, how does that look like? What does it look like, right? So when you're having a conversation with someone, it's like it has to be at least minimum two people, right? Because there's a difference between intercommunication and intra-communication, right? So there's a difference between the communication we have with ourselves inside our heads. Every morning when we're trying to get ready, we're talking to ourselves in our head, and we're kind of going over the to-do list for today, right? Like, do I have meetings? What time is the meeting? All that stuff, right? And then there's a conversation that we have with people outside, with others. And in order for there to be a conversation with another person, it has to be a minimum of one person, right?
Indeed.
So we have two people, right? One person is the sender, the other one is the receiver. Who do you think the sender is going to be?
The person that's speaking.
Yes. So the speaker is the guy is the guy or the girl. It's the person who's sending the message, right? And if I'm the receiver, what should I be doing to be able to be open to receive that message?
Let me think. Maybe listening?
Exactly, right? So if you're the person talking, that means that that's something that I should not be doing. I shouldn't be talking. I should be doing the other thing, listening. Because now if you're talking and I'm talking and we're both sending messages, there's no one there to receive them, then that's miscommunication.
Oh, okay.
This whole signal message thing is getting sent around, no one's catching it, no one's picking it up.
I see.
And so you're the sender, the speaker. You're speaking to me. So what you're sending me is the message, right? Me as a receiver, I'm listening, and that's how I receive the message. And so now my job is to take what you told me and kind of process it in myself and make sure I understand. And then depending on what I say, that's going to be considered the feedback. So the next things I say, now your job is to be what? So I'm talking now back to you. Now you should be doing what?
You're talking back to me?
Yeah, so now it's my turn to talk. You should be the
speaker.
No, you should be the listener.
Ah,
You should be the listener, right? So now I'm talking. You gave me a message. I processed it in my head. I'm like, okay, let me understand what this person said. And now I'm going to give you a message back, and that's called the feedback.
Ah, okay.
And so with me giving you back feedback, your job is to listen to that feedback and make sure that the feedback is kind of what you said. Like, so an example of that would be like ask me a question. Just ask me any question. A simple question.
What color is the sky?
Message you sent me, right? My response would be, oh, yesterday I had a tuna sandwich for lunch. That's the feedback I get you, right? I gave you back. What should your job be now?
Maybe rephrase the question that I stated.
Your job is to pick up on the fact that those two things have nothing to do with each other, right? And so your job as the original sender should be like, all right, where was there the miscommunication? Was the miscommunication in the words I said?
Mm-hmm.
Or was it in what he heard and sent back to me?
Mm.
So a lot of times, too, it's not always the receiver's fault. So it's not always the sender's fault, because a lot of times it's the person who's speaking is not clear enough in what it is they're trying to say.
Mm.
Right?
So you're saying it's a two-way street?
It's a two-way street, yeah.
Okay.
So it's really not one single person's fault when there's a miscommunication. It's kind of like everyone involved, because it's not only everyone's responsibility to actively listen and play that role of paying attention, but it's also the role of the sender, the original speaker, to make sure that that person does a great job sending a clear message that is understandable. And it's his job to make sure, it's that person's job to make sure that everyone understood and pick that up. And if that's not the case, then they have to make sure they go back and, do what they have to say to clear up those things and make sure, like, hey, so what happened? Why did that happen? So in the example I just used, your thing would be like, well, hold up, I asked you, what was the question you asked me?
What color is the sky?
Yeah, your thing was like, why? I asked you about the sky, and you responded to me what you ate yesterday for lunch. Why is that? And then I would say, oh, I'm so sorry. I thought you asked me what I ate for lunch. And then you cleared, like, no, I didn't ask that. Like, I was asking you about the sky. And then we answer that question, and then maybe as the conversation goes on, maybe you can go back and say, well, how come, what happened with lunch?
Mm-hmm.
Let's talk about that now, right?
Right.
So it's everyone's job. It's a two-way street. Everyone's involved in the communication part. Everyone has to take responsibility for where that conversation is going.
Okay, that's great. That's great information that you gave out there. But you did say something, and if you can clarify for me, since we're talking about improving communication, right? You said, what was it? Oh, active listening. What is that?
So active listening is the actual process that you're going through when you're listening to a person speak, right? So that one has to do with, I think that would be a good time to write on the board a little bit towards the end so that people can actually visually see it.
Okay.
But it has to do with, one of the things is that you have to hear each word.
Okay.
That's the number one thing. You gotta hear each word, because can the addition or subtraction of a word change the whole sentence,
Absolutely.
right? So saying, I like to eat tuna sandwich, if I added I do not like to eat tuna sandwich, those are two different things now, right?
Correct.
So that's why it's important to hear each word. So that's one of the things that we'll write on the board to make sure that everyone kind of gets it, because that might be one of the questions I ask.
Ah,
So we're gonna go into that.
I see. Okay. Well, criticism versus confrontation. I'll go ahead and read that passage. If you want to improve your communication with others, you need to learn how to respond well to criticism and confrontation, and to confront instead of criticize others more often when you have a problem with something someone did. Criticism. Criticism leaves a person feeling badly about himself or herself. The person feels worthless, terrible, and lousy as an entire person. And that was kind of dark.
Well, that kind of was a little bit like, we didn't go into too much like in that example we used, but we did talk with like we in that conversation where we were like, hold up, I asked you about the sky, you're telling me about what you ate. That was a little bit of a confrontation, right, and criticism in there, right? So you confronted the fact that there was a miscommunication, right? So you said, hold up, let's address that, and then you critiqued it. You said, well, I was asking you this, why did you do that, right? But the way you did it though, it's like it's important because like one of them, like the thing said, one of them can leave me feeling bad, and then the other one could kind of help me. So the confrontational one was you actually stopping and saying, hey, you know what, I'm actually gonna address it, and you asking me in that manner, hey, I asked you this, why? Right, you're confronted, because a lot of people, a lot of times, a lot of the issue with miscommunication is that a situation like that happens, people they don't feel comfortable stopping and addressing it. They just want to be like, all right, whatever, let's just move on. Like I already know that this person didn't hear what I said, but let's just keep on moving because for whatever reason I don't want to bring it up. I don't want to confront the fact that there's miscommunication. So, the difference between criticizing and confrontation is that confrontation would be like the example we use. Hold up, I asked you this, but you said something. You responded something else. Why? Right. So you're opening it up for us to actually start moving and improving and maybe like fix it, move on, and then that way we don't have to keep having the same issue. Because you're asking, well, why is this happening? Is it that I'm not talking loud enough or whatever? Criticism would be that we're not focused on problem solving. It's more like you're just gonna be like, well, see, this is why I don't ever talk to you, because you don't listen, you don't pay attention. So you're criticizing what I'm doing bad, but we never talk about how can I improve it. So if you're just gonna basically address it in that way where it's like, well, that's why I don't ever like talking to you, you never listen, blah blah blah, we don't fix the problem. Next time you do talk to me, guess what's gonna happen? Most likely
not gonna listen. I'm
not the same. Whatever happened here is gonna happen again. And so a lot of times people, when they're in a relationship, that and that's the case, that's why they're always kind of at the same problem. They never move past it.
Indeed.
Right. And so the confrontational would be like, hold up, like it says, you leave a person knowing that they have done something you don't like, but they still feel positive of themselves, right? So you tell me, hey, I don't like the fact that you didn't listen because you responded to something different. Let's be proactive about it, and then let's kind of like figure out what's the problem.
Gotcha. So the difference between confrontation and criticism is basically how you leave a person feeling. Like, do they feel like, oh man, do they feel bad? Like, I'm a bad person.
Yeah.
Like, I did something wrong, Or are they sitting back and they're like, wait a minute, you're still positive about, whatever is being sent, and they're trying to redirect and understand a little bit better what's going on so they can make the correct adjustments.
Yeah. So with the criticism piece, just pretend or imagine having a conversation with your son or daughter, right? And you try to go the criticism route, and you have them feel badly. Would it then not be understandable why maybe that kid tries to avoid you?
Indeed.
Because then that child doesn't want to feel uncomfortable, scolded, bad. So they're just going to say, you know what? I don't want to feel those things, so I'm going to avoid what causes me to feel that. And that's having a conversation with my father because he's always criticizing me. So I'm just going to stay out of his way and avoid him.
Dad's home. I'm going to go to the room and close that door.
Right.
Put my headphones on.
Right?
Video game.
And so if your child's always avoiding you, then when are you ever supposed to have the conversation to figure out that he's failing math? Or have the conversation where you find out that maybe he's having issues at school that's causing him to not want to be there and ditch. You're not gonna have those conversations, right?
Right.
You're gonna have the ones who's like, how's school? Oh, cool. All right. Right. So it all depends, like, what kind of relationship do you want to have with your children?
Yes. I like that. That's good. So we have something called I statements. I statements are a great way to improve how you communicate, especially about difficult issues, because they help you own or be responsible for your feelings about an issue rather than attacking the other person. I statements.
So in the workbook, it kind of like gives an example of how an I statement would look, right? So one of them would be like, I feel mad when you are late because it makes me look bad. What I need is clarification on what time you're gonna be here. You know what I'm saying? So what that does is that it clearly puts it out on the table or in that conversation what everything is, what the problem is. So this is how I feel, these are the reasons, and this is what I think a possible solution would be.
So if I say, you're always late, it pisses me off, is that the same thing that you just said?
No, because you're just saying like, you basically just told me how I make you feel. And it's like, well, what am I supposed to do with that? You know, you're leaving out a lot of big chunks of that equation for me to be able to solve it. So the other way, it's saying, how is it impacting me? Why? And what can we do to move forward? So the example that you said is just basically like pointing fingers, which can easily someone take it as nagging, right? They would say, oh, she's always nagging me, right? She's always telling me the problems, right? Or he is. But then it's like you don't offer the solutions.
Yes.
So you got to be able to cover yourself and not, like, if you're gonna bring the problem, you got to also come to the conversation with possible solutions. Because then now it's like you're putting it on the other person to fix the problem, when it's like you're involved in it too.
Right, and that kind of goes back to the whole criticize piece, you know? You're always late. It pisses me off. You know, that's like, you're exactly. I have to do that when I say that. Like, I have to point the finger to an individual. So it should calculate in your mind, like, wait a minute. All right, so I'm doing something wrong here, because then that person that's listening, they're going to shut down. You're going to get one of these guys.
That's right.
From a person, and that definitely does not improve communication.
And so with that example you said, that's an option. That's what's going to happen. They're going to close off. They're not going to be open to any possible solutions or any words you're saying. But also another thing that could happen that's negative is that they're just going to go ahead and tell you what they think you want to hear to get the conversation over. And so the same thing happens where like let's say it's the whole being late thing, right? And I'm just like, you're always late, and that's why I always go by myself and I never take you. That person will be like, all right, well then I just won't be late no more. They're telling me something I want to hear, but then it's like, well, we never discussed the solution. How is it going to be fixed? So most likely when the event like this happens again, we're going to be at the same situation where we're arguing again. We don't have
Great.
You know, and so like when we're talking about a father, and let's say a father and son relationship, if the dad, when the grades finally do come in the mail, right, and the dad sees the grade or he gets a phone call, then that dad's reaction might be to just point his fingers at his kids and be like, "You're failing school, like, why are you doing this? Why are you so bad at school? Like, why don't you pay attention? It's always you, right?"
Mm-hmm.
But in reality, it's like, well, the dad has to take some responsibility and be like, well, you know, like, how are you doing so bad in school when it's like I never ask you about it? How are you failing math when I never help you with your math homework? And how are all your grades so bad when I never take the time to even email any of your teachers? How is this happening?
Yes, indeed.
Right? So the conversation should be more, you know, instead of critiquing the kids, you know, ability to do well or bad at school, the confrontation should be like, all right, let's confront the problem, not the person. What's the problem at school? Why are you failing in math? What can I do to help us do better in school? Right?
Indeed. So can you, if you don't mind, let's practice this.
What's up?
Can you give another I statement example?
Another
To
I
me.
statement.
Yes. Or the same one that you did earlier, either or.
All right, so I can say like, I don't like how, or just like, okay, so the thing is like, I don't like when you make plans without telling me because it makes me feel like I'm obligated to go to these things. Right? Because it makes me feel obligated to go to these things. What I need is for you to tell me ahead of time what are some things you're thinking about doing this weekend, so then that way I can tell you whether I had already planned something or not, and then we can both agree on what the weekend plans are going to look like.
Okay. Now that, especially the back end of that piece, that was absolutely beautiful, you know, because even the front end, you know, it could kind of make a person feel like, wait a minute. Because I mean, if you guys know about relationships, if that's not something you said in a relationship, whether it's with your significant other or your children, you know, it's gonna happen if it hasn't, you know.
Yeah.
But how you said that made me first like, wait, there's an issue here. There's an issue going on. All right, so you don't like me doing that. All right, but then you also supported that with a resolution, and your resolution made me really think about and process like, wait, it makes you feel a certain type of way and I don't want to make you feel that way, you know. So it really it's personal. Those I statements are personal. Like it really lets an individual know like what the other person is feeling. And when it comes to relationships, if you're gonna improve that relationship, then you know you're gonna sit there, you're gonna take that in, and you're gonna want to make some kind of adjustments. And if anything, it presents. It presents a discussion for both individuals to hash out a resolution.
But like the confrontational piece is like the person who, like me, for example, my job is not only to confront you and what it is you're doing, but I also have to be able to confront my actual feelings, right? So when I tell you like I don't like you because it makes me feel, whatever I say has to be authentic.
Yes.
Like you can't be like, oh, it makes me feel uncomfortable, when it really makes me feel obligated, right?
Mm-hmm.
Or if someone says like I don't like it, when really they want to say like it makes me feel angry when you do that. So they have to confront their own feelings, and because they have to be able to express honestly how it really does make them feel.
Mm-hmm.
Right? And that's like, for example, like because again that opens up miscommunication. So if you tell me like, let's say I'm dating someone who really likes to eat like a lot of fast food, right? And I don't, right?
Okay.
And every time that person says, or I say, hey, let's go get lunch, and that person's like, oh, let's go get some fast food, and I'm like, okay, and I just keep doing these things over and over and over and over, but I really hate eating fast food. 3, 4, 5 months down the road, because I haven't been able to be honest with this person, I might explode, and it might come out in a very like angry way, right?
Yes.
And then my response would be like, I hate going to go get fast food. Why do we always get fast food? So now I'm attacking this person, right? Well, for that person, it's like, well, I've been miscommunicating this whole time, and this person wasn't aware because, in this person's eyes, she thought I liked because every time she said, "Hey, let's go get fast food," I was like, "Okay, let's go get fast food." So it's like, well, why would you keep saying yes to something you hate,
Right.
and then like months down the road you just blow it up, right? So that's like, again, that's like a miscommunication thing. One person thinks something's going on when the other person thinks something else. So that's why it's like, when you make sure that you take the proper steps to send a clear message as possible, you increase the likeliness of the outcome that comes out of that conversation is a positive, beneficial for both people.
Yes.
Because really, when you're communicating, it's like, that's what it is, right? Either you're communicating, people communicate for two reasons. One of them is to bond. We're just communicating just to bond, because it doesn't really matter where the conversation goes. It's more of like the process of communicating that we're feeding off of, right?
Yes.
But then the other reason people communicate is to problem solve. There's a problem, we're gonna communicate to figure it out. Where are we gonna go eat? So if the reason we're talking or communicating is to figure out where we're gonna go eat, we're hungry, right? We want to go eat. We're not gonna talk as if we're just trying to bond and just talk about why we like to eat and what we don't for 45 minutes. Because the reason we're trying to figure out what to go eat is because we're starving, we're hungry, right? And so we want to make sure that we talk in an efficient manner so we can figure it out, so we can go do the activity, which is go eat.
Mm-hmm.
So that's why a lot of times you have to make sure you're on the same page, like, because if you're starving and I'm not starving and you're asking me about what to go eat and I'm like taking forever to talk, but you're trying to go eat, the reason we're talking are different. You might start getting antsy. That antsiness might turn into anger, and then I'm gonna trip out on you being angry because, like, why is this person being, tripping on me being angry, when in reality we were both talking for different reasons.
Right.
So again, miscommunication. You gotta make sure kind of everyone on board is like, where are we going? Where are we going on this conversation?
Indeed. So yeah, and sometimes when it comes to, not sometimes, but you will at some point when it comes to confrontation, you may need to implement negotiations as well. And negotiation basically means to deal or bargain with someone. So the reason why is because, hey, everyone has different viewpoints, on any topic. So like in that example that you gave, the one person enjoys eating out or eating fast food, probably because it's fast, quick, and maybe they can allocate time towards something else, versus maybe the other person who does not quite so much enjoy eating out fast food. Maybe they'd rather save the money and maybe create a meal, make it more personal, whatever it is. But we have to be able to communicate effectively to one another to hash out a solution, right?
Yeah.
Maybe this day of the week we do fast food. This day of the week we eat at home, right?
And so that's like the easiest way to think about criticism and confrontation is criticism might be focusing too much on who's right and who's wrong. And confrontation is more like, well, what's the solution? Like, what can we, like, where can we both kind of like win-win?
Yes.
And then the whole emphasis is not on like, I'm the right person and you're the wrong person. It's more like, that doesn't matter. Let's like fix this. Like, let's like find a solution. But it's funny you said that, because I was actually looking at like on the workbook where it says identifying and solving problems. Right when you were saying what you were saying, I was like, this is perfect for this. So under identifying and solving problems, it says, when parents and children both have different ideas on what to do, what to wear, when to come home, etc., talk usually stalls. When this happens, both people feel frustrated and often argue. The goal is to reach a place that leaves both people with power. Problem solving and negotiating will leave both parents and children feeling satisfied. Right? So what comes to mind are two words: compromise and collaboration. Right? So one of the most common things that I hear with a lot of couples, especially like younger couples, is that they're always talking about like, oh, compromising, like, oh, like I'm always compromising, she's not willing to whatever. So compromising, it's like, like it's like one person does what person A does what person B wanted to, even though person A doesn't want to. And so the idea, it's like, I'm gonna do this thing one time that I don't want to, because next time we're gonna go hang out and do something that I want to do that you may not be into. But then what that opens up is this whole thing of tit for tat, right? Okay. Keeping score, right? Well, last week we went to go hang out with your friends 5 times, and this week you don't want to go hang out with my friends, even though we've only hung out with them 4 times. So then it's like this whole, again, tit for tat. Collaboration is that, like, again, let's talk about, we're gonna go get some food, right? I want to go eat at place A. You want to go eat at place B. I don't like eating at place B. You don't like eating at restaurant A. So a compromise is either that I force you or you force yourself to go to the restaurant you don't like just cause whatever reason, or vice versa, right? Collaboration would be like, all right, I understand that I want to go eat at restaurant A and I hate B. You want to eat at restaurant B, but you hate A. Our collaboration is like, all right, let's think about something, a third option that wasn't even on the table. We'll come up with a new possible solution. Boom. Let's go eat at restaurant C. We'll both be happy eating there. All right, cool. Boom. Problem solved.
Right. And that's a perfect piece, 'cause especially when you're with your kids, whether it's a young age or, they're young adults, that's something that happens quite often. And you could just go to the grocery store or somewhere, just be out and about, and and witness that happening, and maybe the kids throws a tantrum, and they're getting all crazy in public or whatever it is, but doing that creates an option for the kid. So when they're thinking about it and they're listening to it, they're like, okay, well, maybe I can't do exactly what I want, but I can do this other thing which isn't exactly what you want, but it's an option, and now you're giving them kind of the power and to do something, to make a choice, and sometimes it's empowering an individual is a valuable thing, So now the kid has this option, they can pick that, and it kind of helps resolve the situation.
So a perfect example, which I'm going to give you for you to figure out, is let's say your son's in high school, right? Which is a very common thing. Your kid's in high school and he wants to go to a party, right? And he tells you, hey, Dad, I'm going to a party. I want to stay out till I want to come home at 2 o'clock in the morning.
Oh, God.
So that's a scenario. What are you going to do? How are you going to solve that?
Okay. Well, we can sit back and, as a parent, you probably want to be like, oh, no, you ain't going nowhere, boy. Nuh-uh. You staying at home.
Yeah.
But obviously, that's going to cause issues between the parent-to-child relationship. So you can step back as a father and reevaluate things. Compromise. So maybe I go, all right, son, you can go to the party. I'll allow you to go to the party. I don't even like allow, that's a strong word. You can go to the party. However, I would like you to be home by this time, 12 o'clock. Or don't go to the party at all. Those are your options.
Yeah, so the thing is that, so in that situation, your son's coming with the idea of like, I want to come home at 2. You as a parent, you might be like, nah, like, especially because this is maybe the very beginning of him trying to go out. You're gonna be like, no, you gotta be home by like 9. You've always been home by 9, right? Mm-hmm. So the whole, you're either home by 9 or you don't go out. That's kind of like the compromising piece, right? If you're gonna want to go out to this thing, you have to compromise the fact that you want to be at 2. But then the collaboration piece, and like, all right, you want to be out until 2. I want you home at 9. Where can we figure it out? Like, you're not gonna get what you want. I'm not gonna get what I want. Where can we like both kind of win?
Right.
All right. And then the kid's obviously gonna negotiate. Well, what about 1? And be like, no. What about 10? All right. Well, what about 12? And be like, what about 11? And then you guys keep kind of like negotiating. It's like 12:30, midnight. Okay, fine, that works.
Right.
Right. So your son came to the table with what he wanted with was 2 o'clock. That's his idea. You come to the table with your idea, 9 p.m. And then together you guys figure out, well, we're not, either of us are gonna be happy with any of these, so let's talk and let's compromise.
Yes.
I mean, not compromise, collaborate together. We'll come together to a new solution that wasn't even on the table.
Right, and it's a great time to insert I statements. Son, I feel that 2 o'clock is really late, and when people are out at that time, typically bad things happen. Because I love you,
Yeah.
I want you to be home at a reasonable time for your safety, and so I feel okay.
For sure. And then like I said, you have to be honest with what it is you're telling them you're feeling. Because as a parent, if I was to tell my kid you can come home at 2, what I'm really saying is that like I'm gonna stay up until 2 to wait for you to come home for me to go to sleep. And I was like, I don't wanna stay up until 2, right? So that's why I was like, all right, you gotta be home by midnight because I'm gonna be up because I'm gonna be worried. And I'm not gonna be able to go to sleep until you're home. So that's why you need to be home at 12. Because then I can go to sleep, right? And so a lot of parents, especially men, will say, well, I'm not going to sit there and have this whole conversation with my kid. I'm going to tell him what he needs to do, how it is, and he needs to listen.
Because I'm the parent.
Because I'm the parent or I'm whatever, That's all good and whatever, but what you're doing is that now you're teaching your kid that skill, right? Things are going to happen the way I say no matter what. Well, how's that going to reflect when he has his girlfriend or when he has a wife? You're taking away the ability for him to learn how to have this skill of negotiating, of collaborating with someone, right? So it's like you gotta be able to allow your kid to learn those skills too.
Right, absolutely. And one thing when a kid turns a certain age or they go out into the world, they're gonna be on their own. It's a good idea to educate them, teach them as much as possible before they go out there, and because in the real world, when you have a lot, anything negative that happens can have a drastic impact on one's life. So especially as a teenager, a young adolescent years, we don't want to really take the autonomy away from our kids, and that just means the independence. We want them to grow. We want to teach them how to analyze various situations and how to make the best choice in any given scenario. So to be able to do that under your wing at a young age is a good prerequisite to going out there in the world and combating that.
Yeah, because I would like to believe that the goal of each parent is to raise an adult, right? Help bring a child into adulthood and make them into an adult who is a fully functional, independent individual.
Indeed.
Who's able to overcome all the problems or any problem that they face, right? And they're going to do that by allowing them as many tools as possible that they can carry to be able to resolve any issue that they're gonna come across in life. So yeah, I mean,
yeah, those are the basic necessities when it comes to communication. And if you just kind of follow those minimal steps, knowing the difference between criticism and confrontation, implementing more I statements in your verbiage so your child knows that you care about what they do, and who they're doing it with, and learning how to negotiate, when it comes to any relationships, but especially with our kids. You know, giving them options. You know,
Yeah.
it increases and it improves really your communication with your child, which strengthens the parent to child relationships.
Yeah, because the way your children navigate their relationship with mom and dad is gonna transfer over into the way they navigate their relationships with friends, with significant others, with coworkers, with their employers,
Indeed.
with their customers. So that's why it's important. One of the things we say in Father to Child is that children who think you care about what you think, right?
Beautifully said.
So that child who has that parent who's always asking questions about school, that kid's gonna say, you know what, I think my parents actually care about school and they think it's a big deal because obviously they demonstrate that. I think I better be paying attention and do good in school because that's something that they're gonna be looking into. Whereas if you're just always brushing it off and you don't really show too much attention into it, then they're gonna be like, well, I can kind of do whatever I want because how are they gonna find out,
Right.
right? So earlier we were talking about actively listening, right? So actively listening is kind of a 4 steps.
Okay.
Step number 1, you got to make sure that you pay attention. So paying attention means if you're talking to me, it doesn't mean that I'm on my phone, I'm over here looking at the TV, looking out the window, looking at the clouds.
Okay. All right.
I'm paying attention. Not only am I actually doing it, but I'm showing you that I'm paying attention, right?
Okay.
Step number 2 is you hear each word.
Okay.
Adding or subtracting a single word can change the whole dynamic of a conversation, right?
Okay.
So you got to hear each word. Number 3 is you got to share empathy. So empathy is, it don't got to mean that you have to agree with what I'm saying, but it's you're telling me, hey, I hear what you're saying, like I get what you're saying, I see where you're coming from. And number 4 is the biggest piece, congruency. Do your actions match your words? You know what I'm saying? And that's where that feedback goes into play. Congruency is what you're saying, really what you're meaning to say.
Okay.
You know what I'm saying? Words need to match the action. So, in order for me to be able to pick up a congruency, I got to pay attention to everything that's going on. I got to make sure that I'm fully paying attention. Because a lot of times, people think it's like, it's your job to pay attention, I don't got to pay attention. It's like, nah, it's like we're both in this thing together, so just like you're going to stop and listen to me, I can't just be on my phone. It's like, yeah, and then so sometimes, like when you do this, right? So it's kind of, everyone's got to pay attention, everyone's got to hear each word, everyone's got to show empathy, and everyone's got to make sure that they're congruent with what they're saying.
Beautiful. Active listening. I like it. Excellent.
Yeah. So, I think, we got to wrap it up because we're coming towards the end. I think the 2 questions we're going to pose are going to be, number 1, what's the difference between a collaboration and compromise? So what are the difference, and why is one more beneficial than the other? What do you think the other question should be?
What we'll do is we'll present an example, a brief example, and for our viewers or listeners, you let us know whether that is criticism or confrontation, if it's that type of statement, and if you can put a little extra, put why. One's either criticism versus confrontation.
Perfect. All right, so again, we're gonna post the questions below the video. In order to get credit, you got to make sure that you respond to those questions clearly. Make sure you answer them. Send that to us in a direct message, and then that way we know who you are. We give you credit for today's session. And remember that next week on Monday at 12:30, we're also going to go online again, and we're going to be doing session 10, which will be fun with kids. So we're going to talk about tradition, carrying them on, or creating new traditions, and just creating different ways to bond with their children at their different stages that they're at.
Excellent. Yeah, that's perfect. So until then, we will catch you next week.
Cool. See you guys next week. Boom.